Hey guys, in this video, we're going to take a look at a self-hosted solution that will allow us to monitor web pages and get notifications when there are updates or changes to those web pages. And the solution that we're going to take a look at, again, is a self-hosted version of ChangeDetection.io. But before we get into all of that, of course, we've got some bills to pay, so here's a quick message from today's video sponsor. This video is sponsored by Linode. I've been partnered with Linode for quite a while now because it's a great place to host just about anything you could want to host. Need a dedicated space to host an app? Linode has you covered with more than 100 pre-built apps that can be installed with just a couple of clicks. Want to develop an app on your favorite flavor of Linux? Linode has you covered there too, with more than 30 different options to start with. Need to do some pen testing on your own network or app? Install a Kali Linux setup in just a few clicks to get started with testing your own security. You can also host a Docker setup, a Kubernetes cluster, and more with just a few clicks. From hosting a single website to complex multi-cloud deployments, find enterprise-level capabilities like object storage, Kubernetes, and GPUs at a 30 to 50% lower cost than the major cloud providers. Be sure to check out the link in the video description to get $100 in free credit for 60 days to see what you can do with Linode. So you may be wondering, why would I want to host something like ChangeDetection.io locally? And the answer to that is maybe you want to make sure that if a web page is updated, of course, you'll get a notification for that. Or maybe you follow websites online for social media stuff. And let's say some of those platforms are real garbage about sending notifications to you, whether that's YouTube, Twitter, whatever, right? And you're not getting the notifications that you'd like. You can set up URLs in here for those different pages and get notifications every X number of minutes, depending on how you set it up. And this will automatically go out and look for changes and then report back any number of different ways, whether it's email or Discord, or there's a bunch of different ways that we can take a look at here in a little bit. But you can basically set up your own notification system if a web page changes. And that's what I really like about this. This is something that I will probably enable for some different things. But in this video, I want to show you how to get it set up. But before we do that, I want to show you kind of how it works. Here we are on change.dbtech.com, and we've got a URL up here. Obviously, we've got a little logo, a little text logo up there, some settings, import, backup, and log out, and then a link over to the GitHub repository for this project. Below that, we can add a new change detection watch, so a URL, and then a watch group is like a category or a tag, so that you can kind of keep different URLs categorized if you wanted to do that. Then we can, once we've got these entered, you don't, and I want to be clear, you don't have to put a watch group in if you don't want to. It's just something you can do for categorization purposes. Then you can click watch or edit and watch if you want to kind of add some more configuration to this. This right here is just a very basic configuration. If we click edit and watch, then we can kind of configure a bunch more stuff and then deploy once we're ready. Below that, we've got some tabs of all, tech news, and change detection. So all is fairly self-explanatory. That is a category which encapsulates all of the different URLs that you're monitoring. Tech news is just that. This is one of the watch groups that was in here by default. Same with ChangeDetection.io. And if I switch over to those, you can see that those are just in their own little categories or watch groups. Below that, we can check them and pause, unpause, mute, unmute, set default notification, or delete. So let's uncheck that. And of course, over here, we can pause and then mute notifications. Here is the URL that we're monitoring. We can open this. We can share it. Here is, again, our watch group. We can see when it was last checked, when it was last changed. We can force a recheck. We can edit the configuration for this watch, or we can click diff, and that will kind of show us the changes that have been recorded. So let's actually come down here to let's take a look at number 3 here. That's dbtech.com/shelves/Docker containers. Again, checked 2 minutes ago, last changed 12 minutes ago. And let's go ahead and click on diff here. And if we scroll up back to the top, it kind of brings you down a little bit. But if we scroll back up, we can see pro tip, or we can see it says pro tip there, use the current snapshot to visualize what will be ignored. We're going to worry about that. But here we can see all of the text that's picked up on the page. And if you're familiar with GitHub and versioning, here we can see that like updated 1 hour ago by DBTech is in red there because it was deleted, and then updated 2 hours ago by DBTech is in green because that's what was basically the new version of that text. And same thing right below that, we can see 1 hour ago was removed and 2 hours ago was added. So that's, and of course, if there were more changes on this page, we would see those down here, but there aren't any. So we're not going to see any of those red and green indicators for any additional changes. So let's come back to our home page here, and let's actually go over to this website or this web page. And here is the page that we're looking at here, that we're monitoring. So let's come over here and click on Edit, and then we're just going to do this. We're going to say this is a test for change detection video, because that's grammatically correct. And we're going to click Save. And then we'll give that a second. Shelf is successfully updated. And right there is that new text. So if we come back and we do a force recheck, here we can see that it is checking now. We're going to give this a second to do its thing. We may have to manually just hit F5 on the keyboard after a moment. But once we do that, we should see some new changes to our diff page. So here we are. It says last check just now, last change 15 minutes ago. Let's check diff here. Oh, nah, that's... There we go. I was looking at the wrong ones. One thing I don't like about this is that the order changes fairly regularly, and that's a little bit frustrating. I wish it didn't do that. But here is the URL we're looking for here. Last check 23 seconds ago, last change 23 seconds ago. We hit diff here. Right here, we can see, again, the updated 2 hours ago was removed, updated 9 seconds ago was added, same thing right below that. And down here, we can see that this is a test for change detection video. Was added in green. There's no red there because I didn't remove anything. However, let's go back and let's change that again. Again, just for the sake of testing here. So we'll click Save. Give that a second. Shelf successfully updated. Again, it's not under this that sentence there anymore. So we're going to come back. We're going to come back again, and then we're going to check this. We're going to do recheck. Again, we're going to force that. It says it's queued. We're going to give it a second to do its thing, and then we'll come back and take another look at the differences that it's picked up as far as the modifications and that sort of thing. Okay, so it says that it was checked and changed 22 seconds ago. So we'll click diff again. And again, we've got some updated stuff up here in red and green in a couple of different spots. But then right here in red, we can see that this is a test for change detection video is in red. Well, it's in blue. Now it's in red, so that we can see that that was deleted. So that's kind of the general idea of a basic function of how this would work. Now, let's take a look at how this might work on, say, something like Twitter. So here we are. We're back on our change detection homepage. Right here is our twitter.com, and I'm going to do a recheck. We're going to give this a second again. We want to force that recheck just for the sake of demonstration here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the diff here. And again, we need to scroll up, and right here it says JavaScript is not available. We've detected that JavaScript is disabled in this browser, so please enable JavaScript or switch to a supported browser to continue using twitter.com. That's because it's trying to pull it via a command line versus trying to use a browser agent to view the page. So what we need to do in order to make this work is actually install a browser agent in our system. Now, we're going to take a look at how to do that in a little while, but I want to show you what happens when we enable it. We'll come back to the installation stuff for both change detection and the browser here in a little bit. So let's take a look at what it takes to get this, to get Twitter as an example to work for this. So again, we're going to come back to our change detection homepage here. We're going to come into Twitter. We're going to click Edit. Here is the URL that we're using. Again, you can put a title, a group tag. You can say how often do you want it to check by weeks, days, hours, minutes, seconds. We can extract the title from the document and use that as a watch title if you wanted to do that, and send notifications when the filter can no longer be found on the page. Just some different settings there. Now, if we come over here to request, by default, basic, fast, plain text HTTP client is what our system will use to look for changes on web pages, which worked just fine on dbtech.com, but did not work on twitter.com. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable this WebDriver Chrome/JavaScript via this URL right here. Now that's a container that I have running on this same host. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch this like so. And at this point, we can say, do we want to ignore status codes, process non-200 status codes as normal? We can change that to yes or no by checking the box there. And then once a page is loaded, how long do you want it to wait before it starts rendering text, or extracting text rather? Because some pages might take 10 or 15 seconds to load. So how long do you want it to pause before it actually starts extracting text? I've got it set for 20 seconds, but you can of course adjust that as you need to for your setup. So there are other settings up here like visual filter selector. We can do some stuff in there. Filters and triggers, and then notifications. Now, here at the top, we can turn notifications muted on or off. And here it says there are system-wide notification URLs enabled. So what we can do is we can set a global notification if we want to do that, which you probably should just for the sake of easy maintenance. But if there's a service that you want to monitor and get a different notification on, you can absolutely do that by doing an override and putting your notification snippet right here. We're going to talk about those here in just a minute as well. But that's kind of what's going on here is you can actually do individual web page overrides as far as notifications are concerned. Now, once we're happy that we've got this WebDriver, Chrome, JavaScript via the container, once we're happy with that, we can click Save. And so now we're back on our homepage. That means it's saved. So here, what we'll notice is now this Twitter has a little Chrome icon right there because that's the browser agent that I'm using in that container so that we can render web pages and get the actual differences of those web pages. Now, you'll see that this says it's checking right now. It was last changed 20 minutes ago. So let's go ahead and just refresh the page. Okay, so it is still rechecking. So we're gonna give this a minute. Once it's done checking, we'll come back and take a look at what it's found. Okay, so just here a moment later, I refreshed a couple of times and now it's good to go. So again, what we're gonna do is click on diff right here. And here we can see all of this stuff in green. That's all stuff that was added, stuff that it scanned to the page, and this is the text that it found, so it added it. And then right here, of course, that was an error message that it received. So it removed that once there was no longer an issue there. I'm not sure why it's still showing this. I'm guessing that that's just on the page. But if we come over to screenshot here now we can actually see that web page. Now, unfortunately, we've got a little pop-up window there that is impeding our ability to view the page, but that shows that we've got our Chrome enabled. So let's actually do something a little different here. But basically, this shows how we can take snapshots of pages here. So let's go back to our homepage. Let's come over here to dbtech.com. We're going to click Edit. We're going to come over here to Request. We're going to switch this to WebDriver as well. We're going to wait 10 seconds. We're going to click Save. And now dbtech.com, again, now it has the little Chrome icon there and it's checking. So we're going to give this a second to do its thing. And then once it's done, we'll come back and take a look at the snapshot for that web page. Okay, so this says website, last check just now, last change just now. Let's take a look at the diff. And here we can see that we've updated 5 minutes ago, was removed, updated 6 minutes ago, was added. That's fine. Let's take a look at the screenshot. And here we go. There's a screenshot of the page. Now, it doesn't seem to do a scrolling screenshot. You could maybe change that with some settings, but by default, it doesn't do a scrolling screenshot. So that's something to keep in mind there. So even though this doesn't actually at the moment do a scrolling screenshot, and again, that's probably something I've missed, but you get an idea of kind of how this will go to a web page and look through it and show you the changes that have been made, whether it's via a screenshot or over here via text, you know, with the red and green kind of versioning that they've got set up here. So with that said, let's take a look at how we can get notifications so that we don't have to log into our dashboard here to see the changes that have happened, unless we really want to. But let's see how we can get notifications for these changes. Okay, so this is one of the rooms or chats or whatever on my Discord server. It's my testing war zone, appropriately named for the sake of what we're doing here. But if we take a look, we can see that just a couple of minutes ago, 10:55, it's now 10:57. We can see that updated changed was updated 5 minutes ago, changed into 6 minutes ago, and then changed 5 minutes ago into 6 minutes ago. And above that, we can see that there was a change detected on YNews Combinator. There was another change on that dbtech.com. Above that, there was a change for my Twitter account. And we can kind of get a running log of all of the different changes that have happened here. And if nothing else, this will give us an idea of, like, if we get a notification here, if we want better details, we can always go back to our dashboard and log in. So let's show you how to get notifications for Discord set up. It's actually super, super easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over. If you've got a Discord set up, you're just going to go to your little icon there. You're going to right click. You're going to go to server settings. You're just going to click server settings. And then what you're going to do is come down and look for integrations. And then you're going to go to web hooks right here. We're going to click right there. And right here is SpideyBot. That's actually the bot that I'm using currently, but we're going to create a new one. We're going to click create new webhook. Let's call this change detect. And then we're going to choose the channel. I guess channel is the word I was looking for earlier. We're just going to come over here to we're going to come over here to testing Warzone, right? And we're going to copy the webhook, and then we're gonna click save down here. So now we can minimize this and come back over to our dashboard. So let's actually come up here to settings. We're gonna go to notifications, and right here we can see the previous bot that I was using. So let's just drop down to a new line so we can kind of get an idea of what the differences are here. So we're going to start with Discord // right? And then basically at this point, you can kind of see all of this has been removed there. So we'll just do Discord like so. And that is all we're gonna need for this new bot to work. So I'm gonna delete the old bot, I'm gonna do that. And then I can click send test notification, it says it was sent. So let's come down here and check, we've got a little circle there now. And we'll come over here and close. We'll scroll down. Change detection notification at 10:59. It is currently 10:59. So we know that our bot is working. So let's minimize this and let's click OK here and come down and click save. And of course, that's going to run that check every 5 minutes. And anytime it sees a change on any of the different websites or web pages that we're monitoring here, we'll get a notification via Discord, like we saw a moment ago with all of this going on. And of course, we can see, dbtech.com, Ynews Combinator, Twitter. Those are all different websites that are being monitored currently. Now, when it comes to getting email notifications, you're going to need an SMTP server for that, obviously. Now, I tried multiple times for way longer than I'm happy with this morning to get Google Apps or whatever the new paid version of Google is to work with app passwords and all that kind of stuff. And I could not get Gmail to work with this setup. However, I did manage to get it working with SendGrid. So if we come over here, again, we're going to go to settings right here. And then we're going to go to notifications again. And then we're just going to go ahead and delete that. And then what I can put in here is this. Yes, I know you can see my login information. This isn't going to be relevant by the time this video goes live. So it's fine that you can see this, I promise. So if we take a look at this, we can see we've got mail to, and then my username for SendGrid is API key in this case. And then we've got a colon that separates the username from basically the password. This is the actual API key that was generated when I generated the API key. So it's going to be my username and the API key at sendgrid.com !from, and then my email address that's associated with that account. Now, once you've got this, again, we can click send test notification. It says that it was sent, and we can click OK. And here we can see just now I received an email from ChangeDetection.io notification. If I open this up, here is the URL. Now this is a tracking URL that SendGrid sent me. But if I click this, it's going to take me over and I can see, unfortunately, it brings me here for some stupid reason, but it lets me know that that notification is working. So that's how we can get both Discord as well as email notifications. Again, I used SendGrid, but that's just a couple of different ways that you can get notifications, and I'll show you the other options that are available here. Well, now let's take a look at the notifications that are kind of built into this. So by default, we can see Getter, Office 365, AWS, SNS, SMTP, Discord, AppRise URLs, and Telegram are kind of all natively built into this so that you can use these setups like they've shown here. They've been given little examples of how each one of those would work. So you'll want to modify your notifications to fit this, but these are the ones that they've got built in. The other thing that I forgot to mention earlier is that by default, there's no password on this. So if you plan on putting this on a URL, be careful, but you can actually put a password on here. If we come over here and under settings, that's where we are now. If we go to general, right here, you can put a password right here to password protect your ChangeDetection.io application. So make sure that you do that. You may even want to go a step further if you're using something like Cloudflare tunnels, or you're using one of your reverse proxies that has the option to add additional security. You may want to consider that, but if you don't want to go that route, you can add a password here that somebody would have to enter in order to get access to this dashboard. So I just wanted to bring those up so that I didn't forget to bring them up later. So like we do very often on this channel, we're going to use a Linux server.io Docker container for deploying this service. Of course, links to everything will be in the description down below, just like always. If we scroll down, we can see what the Docker Compose for this is going to look like. But first, we can see that this is for x86 and ARM. So you should be able to install this on a desktop style computer or a Raspberry Pi just fine. That said, make sure that you pick the right architecture for whatever version of the operating system you've got. So you've got a 32-bit operating system on your Pi. use the ARM HF. If you've got a 64-bit version of the operating system, use the ARM64 to make sure that you get the full compatibility. So below that, of course, we've got the application setup, and we can kind of see what that looks like. And here is the Docker Compose, more or less, that we're going to use for our configuration here. So, okay, so here we are. We're taking a look at our Docker Compose, or our stack, whatever you want to call it here. We've got a version 2.1, which is fairly standard. Below that, of course, we've got services. Our service here will be change detection. Of course, we can name that whatever, but I like to name it whatever it is. And below that, we've got an image of Linux servers ChangeDetection.io with the latest tag to make sure we've got the most current version of the Docker container whenever it's available. Below that, we've got a container name of change detection. An environment, we've got some environment variables next of PUID and PGID, time zone, base URL, and web driver URL. The UID and GID that we can see here, there's 998 and 100. Those are for permissions. Those are very standard, especially with Linux server containers, to make sure we've always got the right permissions for our container. Now, if you're not sure what your PUID and PGID should be, it's fairly easy to figure out, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Basically, what you want to do is you're going to SSH into your server, which I've already done down here. I'm going to open this up, and we're going to type in ID and then space, and then we're going to type in the username that we use to administer our server. Please don't ever use root. That's a really bad idea for security reasons. Don't run your containers as root. Bad idea. So I'm on OpenMedia Vault 6 for this setup, for just for this demo server, and the username that I use to log into that server is admin. Now, let's say you're on Ubuntu or something like that. Like when I set up a demonstration Ubuntu server, my username is dbtech, right? So in this case, I'm going to do ID space, and then because I'm on OpenMedia Vault, I'm typing admin. Again, though, if I was on, say, something like Ubuntu, I would type in the username that I use to log into that server. Again, please don't use root. It's a really bad idea. So what I'm going to do is just come back and type in admin. Oops, if I can get my keys on the right spot there. And here we can see 998 and 100 right there. So that's what I've got right here. Below that, we've got a time zone of America/Denver. Change that to whatever your time zone is. The base URL, this is where I'm going to access my instance here. Of course, you can make that local if you want to. You can put that on a URL if you want to. That's completely up to you, but that's what I've got in there. This WebDriver URL, by default, is actually turned off. So I'm going to do that for right now, and we'll come back and modify it here in just a little bit. Below that, we've got a volume. This is where I've got this container stored on my server. Of course, you'll put that wherever you want to put your container. And then, of course, we've got our where it's mapped to inside the container. Don't change that. The colon and everything after it, don't change it. Same thing with the ports. This was 5,000, 5,000. I changed it to 5010, 5,000. Again, don't change anything after the colon there. If you need to change the port, change the port on the left side of the colon there. And a restart policy of always, that's fine. You could do unless stopped or never. Just kind of pick and choose what makes most sense for your setup. Now, once you've got this, once you're happy with this setup, you can scroll down and click on, mine says update, yours will say deploy. Just go ahead and click that and let it go. Now, we're going to give this a second to deploy and do its thing. And once it's done, we'll come back and take a look.
A few moments later.
So here we are. It says that we're up and running. Let's take a look at our logs here. Now, this tells me that we're on the right track, but we're not quite there yet. What we want to do, there's going to be some more text that's going to show up below this. Once that comes up, we'll know that the container is actually up and running, and we can actually go take a look at our dashboard. Okay, so now that this looks good, it looks like we're actually checking a couple of URLs there. Let's open a new tab there like so. And here we are. We're up and running and ready to go. However, let's add our Twitter URL in there just so we can see it fail, if we're being completely honest here, right? So we're going to go to HTTPS for the watch group, and we'll click watch. So here it is. It says it is checking now. Nothing has been changed because nothing has been indexed or scraped yet. So we're going to give this a second to do its thing. And here we go. Twitter was last checked 12 seconds ago. And again, if I click on preview here, we can see that JavaScript is not available. And that's kind of the error message that I was wanting to show so that we could take a look at how to get a browser agent installed so that we can actually get our snapshots for this. Now, keep in mind, this isn't necessary for all sites. This is kind of one of those that you'll really only need to install it for sites that need it. I don't know that I would use this on all sites unless you really want to get snapshots for everything. So what we're going to do in order to get our browser agent installed via Docker, we've got this Selenium HQ Docker Selenium page over on GitHub. if we scroll down quite a ways, there's a bunch of information here that I definitely encourage you to read through to get a better understanding of what's going on. Basically, right here, we can see this is a started Docker container with Firefox. We can scroll down and we've got Chrome beta, Chrome dev, Firefox beta, Firefox dev. And of course, here is a full dev and beta on the grid. This almost crashed my system, so I don't recommend doing this. I would just pick the browser that you want to use. Maybe you need a couple of browsers, but I would just pick the browser that you're going to use primarily. But right here is the Docker command that I found for Chrome. That's the browser agent I wanted to use. You could absolutely use, Firefox or Edge if you wanted to do that. I would pick one and run with that. But once you've picked the agent that you want to run, what I like to do here is just copy this, come over to my terminal window that I've already got open, and paste it in there. So once we've got this pasted in, we can see it's a Docker run detached, which means it won't be dependent on this terminal window staying open. We're going to be on port 4444. We're going to have a shared memory size of 2 gigs. And here we can see that it's the Selenium standalone Chrome version 4.6.0, and then the date at the end of that is what they've got available right here. So once we've got that, we can go ahead and hit enter. It's unable to find that image locally, so it's going to go ahead and download all of the assets that it needs in order to deploy this container. And then once it's up and running, we'll come back and take a look.
A few moments later.
Okay, so that container has deployed. We can see that the status is right there. So we come back to Portainer. Let's go to our containers. Let's sort by created. Here's our change detection, and here is our Selenium standalone. And it gave it a weird name. You could add a name to that command if you wanted to, but this is perfectly fine for what we're doing here. So if we take a look over here, we can see that this is running on port 4444. So if we come back to our stack over here for change detection and click on editor, we can actually uncomment this WebDriver URL right there and put in the IP address of our server, which is 0.49, and then the port of that 4444 that we saw a moment ago, and then we can click on update the stack. Now we've got our change detection again running. Let's take a look at the logs here. We're going to give this another second. Maybe. No, I think we're actually good to go there. So let's come back over to our URL, right? And Twitter. We're going to force a recheck on that. We're going to give this a second. And then hopefully, if our agent is deployed properly, we should actually be able to see the changes available in the versioning, as well as a screenshot of the social media site. Okay, so last checked 14 seconds ago, nothing changed. We're going to click preview. Oops. Oh, you want to know why? Because I'm dumb. That's what happened there. Let's actually go back. What I didn't do is actually tell Twitter to use that. So we're going to go into edit. We're going to go to request. We're going to do this. Again, we're going to switch it from basic to WebDriver. That's why we didn't see an actual change there. So we're going to go ahead and we'll ignore status codes. We'll wait 20 seconds and then we'll click save. So let's go back to our homepage. Okay, there we go. Now we've got our little icon there, as well as our watch group. So it says it's checking again. We'll give this a second to do its thing. Now, when you're doing screenshots, it will take a little bit longer than doing just an HTTP request. So you may have to give it an extra moment or two in order for the check to complete, so that it can actually capture the screenshot. Okay, it says it's still checking, but we can see that it changed last 21 seconds ago. And if we click on diff, here now we can see everything that's going on that page. We can see that something went wrong, has been removed again. Again, this JavaScript up here is kind of, I wouldn't worry too much about it, because we're actually seeing everything here in green that was added. And of course, we can jump over to screenshot again. We can see what that looks like. Again, that notifications thing is kind of a bummer in this particular instance, but you may have different results if you used Firefox or Edge. But there you go. There's how to install ChangeDetection.io as a self-hosted service on Docker and get some notifications both via Discord and email, and then also have a browser agent so we can take screenshots and kind of bypass the HTTP request issues that you might have otherwise. So we covered quite a bit in this video. I apologize sort of for a long video. Hopefully, though, you found the video helpful. If you did, it would mean a lot to me if you gave the video a thumbs up. It really does help, more than you might actually think. But yeah, I think that's going to cover basically everything I wanted to cover in this video. I do want to thank you guys for spending some time with me today. I do appreciate that. And I think with that said, I'm going to wrap this up, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.